All right, y'all, it's Antiwar Radio on Chaos 92.7 in Austin, Texas. Live on the internet, chaosradioaustin.org. And our next guest this hour, I think, was obliquely referred to in the article I was just sharing with you by Steve Cole, where he talks about bin Laden keeping up with American media and reading books about foreign policy, as we know from his speeches. One of those books that has actually been recommended to you and I, the people of America, by the enemy, Osama bin Laden, is called Imperial Hubris, Why the West is Losing the War on Terrorism. And its author is Michael Scheuer. He's the former head analyst, the chief of the CIA's bin Laden unit back in the 1990s. He and his team gave Bill Clinton at least 10 different chances to capture or kill bin Laden before September 11th. And he has quit the CIA back in 2005 and has emerged as a staunch critic of Bush administration policy in the war on terrorism, and has often lent his expertise to this show and to antiwar.com in writing as well. Welcome back to the show, Mike. How are you doing?
Very good, Scott. How are you, sir? Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's very good to talk to you again. I'm doing well. And did you see this article by Steve Cole in the LA Times over the weekend?
I did not, no.
It's basically Steve Cole making the case that backing Musharraf has been a really bad deal because the incentive has been to leave bin Laden basically out there on the run, that if they thought, the military in Pakistan probably believed that if they ever caught the guy, that would be the end of their meal ticket. And so due to the fact of the fall of Musharraf, despite Dick Cheney's best efforts, and the coming back to power of more democratic forces, and also due to the attacks, perhaps even including the suicide bombing that killed Benazir Bhutto, followed up the shooting that killed her, that these things have all worked against bin Laden, that the blowback that bin Laden has created for himself in Pakistan has made him quite unwelcome, that all the opinion polls there show that he's no longer a folk hero, but someone that they are very suspicious of, and that his days are probably numbered if we can just kind of float along the same path here. What do you think?
I think that's wishful thinking. I think it's pretty much nonsense.
Pretty much nonsense.
The reason bin Laden wasn't gotten by the Pakistanis is because it's not in their interest to do that. Not because they wanted to keep getting our money, but because it would cause their country to really be torn apart by a civil war. Musharraf has done far more for us than we had any right to expect him to do. He sent his army into the tribal areas where it was defeated. In 2001, he helped us destroy the perfect government in Afghanistan for Pakistan, which was the Taliban. Karachi is now just about a U.S. naval port. He's allowed us unlimited overflight rights, and he's allowed us to expand our presence in his country. And in return, we have virtually destroyed Pakistan by insisting on the return of democracy, which has given to the Pakistani people as their leaders the two biggest thieves in the history of Pakistan, and that's saying something. So I think I have great respect for Steve Cole. I think his book on the bin Ladens is a wonderful book, but I think he's just out of touch on this one.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about the fact that there have been attacks that have at least been attributed to al-Qaeda that have killed a lot of Pakistani civilians? Are they not suffering blowback from that?
I doubt it. I don't know where Steve gets the idea that these are al-Qaeda attacks. From what I've read in the papers and from what I've seen in the media, most of the attacks that have caused large amounts of damage in Pakistan have been by the Pakistani Taliban rather than al-Qaeda. And they might be associated, but clearly not in a command and control way. So I think, you can view things however you like them, but the bottom line is, Scott, that bin Laden is going to remain alive. Al-Qaeda is going to remain an enemy of the United States, a potent enemy, until the United States elects an adult leader and decides to take care of the problem ourselves.
Well, but what does that mean? Send the Marine Corps into the Hindu Kush Mountains?
No, I don't think we can do that anymore. We're defeated in Afghanistan. There's not enough troops in the entire U.S. military to save our situation there. We're going to have to do it somehow, in some other way at some point. We've been there too long, we've done too little, and the insurgency is just too powerful now.
All right, well, now, you and I, we've been talking for a few years now, and I think in the very first interview you put it to me like this. You said our choice is either war or total war, that if we fix our foreign policy and quit making more terrorists, then we have a war to deal with the people who are already our enemies. If we continue on the way we're going, we're going to end up having to fight all 1.5 billion Muslims in the world.
Well, we're getting there, too. You know, the latest polling across the Muslim world shows that 80% of Muslims identify our foreign policy and our government as a enemy and as a threat to Islam. That's an extraordinary number. And right now we're evolving as a country into one big Israel. All we have left to defend ourselves is our military and our clandestine service. Dr. Paul, over the course of the last year, waged a courageous and almost superhuman effort to let the American people know that we are not at war because of who we are, but because of what our government does.
And my argument is that we shouldn't go to war so carelessly. When we do, the wars don't end.
Congressman, you don't think that changed with the 9/11 attack, sir?
What changed?
The non-interventionist policies.
No, non-intervention was a major contributing factor. Have you ever read about the reasons they attacked us? They attack us because we've been over there. We've been bombing Iraq for 10 years. We've been in the Middle East. I think Reagan was right. We don't understand the irrationality of Middle Eastern politics. So right now we're building an embassy in Iraq that's bigger than the Vatican. We're building 14 permanent bases. What would we say here if China was doing this in our country or in the Gulf of Mexico? We would be objecting. We need to look at what we do from the perspective of what would happen if somebody else did it to us.
Are you suggesting we invited the 9/11 attack, sir?
I'm suggesting that we listen to the people who attacked us and the reason they did it. And they are delighted that we're over there because Osama bin Laden has said, I am glad you're over on our sand because we can target you so much easier. They have already now, since that time, have killed 3,400 of our men, and I don't think it was necessary.
Wendell, may I make a comment on that? That's really an extraordinary statement. It's an extraordinary statement as someone who lived through the attack of September 11, that we invited the attack because we were attacking Iraq. I don't think I've ever heard that before, and I've heard some pretty absurd explanations for September 11. And I would ask the congressman to withdraw that comment and tell us that he didn't really mean that.
Congressman?
I believe very sincerely that the CIA is correct when they teach and talk about blowback. When we went into Iran in 1953 and installed the Shah, yes, there was blowback. The reaction to that was the taking of our hostages, and that persists. And if we ignore that at our own risk. That if we think that we can do what we want around the world and not incite hatred, then we have a problem. They don't come here to attack us because we're rich and we're free. They come and they attack us because we're over there. I mean, what would we think if we were if other foreign countries were doing that to us?
Can I have 30 seconds, please?
No, wait a second. We'll all get 30 seconds.
They are coming.
We all want 30 seconds to talk about this.
And the establishment media and both parties managed to portray him as somewhat less than patriotic and at times crazy. But the years ahead will show that we transitioned into this total war situation despite the best efforts of Dr. Paul.
Okay, now I want to try to nail down a little bit more about some sort of workable end to the terror war against bin Laden and Zawahiri, who still are podcasting from the Hindu Kush Mountains there. If Ron Paul did win somehow, Mitt Romney and John McCain, waterboard each other to death or something, and Ron Paul's the last man left standing in my fantasy, and he does fix American foreign policy, brings the Navy home, he pulls our troops out of Iraq, he quits picking fights and fulfilling that list of 6 grievances and so forth. Then what do we do about the Egyptians and Saudis, the friends of Osama that are hiding in Waziristan? Can we just surround them and wait them out? Or
one of the things that will happen as we disengage from the region would be the ability of Osama bin Laden and his lieutenants to hold this movement together would rapidly diminish.